have scars. I have scars. We have scars. And it's too bad Paige just left because she doesn't. And she watches Matlock, and or did, and Law and Order, and Dateline, and is really intrigued by the stories and the unfoldings and the intrigue of the legal system and the rules and the regulations and all that jazz. And so as a Monday morning quarterback or as a spectator, I would like to put it as a spectator, I can respect the fact that it can be interesting. But I started with you have scars. And I have scars because working in this industry, toiling in this industry, we see failure, or we don't always win.
Yeah.
And justice is not always served. And frustration is almost inexplicable when you walk through the door at night to deal with, not to deal with, but to, be with your family, and you're hanging on to whatever happened earlier that morning, afternoon, or whatever, and this process that you poured your soul into or your heart into, and that happens 15, 20% of the time, 40, 50% of the time if you're a criminal defense guy. I mean, it probably, I don't know the stats, I'm not going to pretend to know yours, but there's some hardship to letting it go and seeing what should be and knowing that some dumb regulation or some dumb red tape or some judge having an off day or prosecutor that's sat on the wrong, didn't take the right hemorrhoid medication that morning, whatever the case might be, or just the system in itself too. Mm-hmm. Just the system in itself when you're just desk to desk, knee to knee to somebody that's wanting something that seems perfectly reasonable to you, but you knowing the system is not set up for that person on any level, and you have to break that to them. Hence, that's why I send every human being on the planet to you.
And vice versa, yeah.
Because they need that. They need that truth, and I know they're going to get it, and I like that. So, Supreme Court. Brown and what is it, Kagan? Wrote the two. We're going to talk about two Supreme Court decisions that came out today.
Oh, good. Well, then you're going to rely. I've not heard yet.
Going to come right back to you to pull me back into where we start. Scars, what we see. I just heard political commentators from CBS, NBC, Fox, whatever, and I'm really hot right now.
Okay, shoot.
Because
I haven't looked at my phone yet. Then.
I started. I know. These are good. These are not going to offend either one of us.
Okay.
These Supreme Court decisions are going to shock us a little bit. They had an initial, because I just named two of the three liberal judges that wrote these opinions that were unanimous. We're in June. The court is not unanimous in June, historically.
Yeah.
Very partisan in June. Gal suing out of Ohio, suing for reverse discrimination.
Okay.
She was passed up, worked at the same place. I think it was the university there. Worked at the same place for a long period of time, passed up, and hired, or was passed up by two lesbian individuals. And she sued based on reverse discrimination because she's a straight white lady. Went all the way to the Supreme Court. Unanimous decision because you have to show in Ohio, you have to show that there's a pattern if you're in a majority class. So there's your ruling if you have a majority class. So first there's probably some sort of, what's a majority class? What's the majority? I guess white female now falls there, wherein not very long ago, white female would not have fallen there.
Minority. Yeah.
Might have fallen elsewhere. I found that interesting. My mind's running 1,000 miles. I'm doing
Yeah, and I'm
18
processing this because this is new information for me.
Right,
So.
and I know you're going to think the same as me because of the scars we talked about. I mean, again, Paige just joined us now. She is grew up on Matlock, which is respectable. It's respectable. I don't know many kids that watched Andy Griffith. We did. We watched Andy Griffith because that was a great show. But Matlock, I passed that by like Murder, She Wrote. I was a little bit too old.
Columbo. And
I was back. That was a great one. But once I got into the 10, 11, 12 on, it was like you. I was outside, outdoors,
and
out of sight, out of mind.
I'm an old soul, so that's why. And you are too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're old and an old soul.
I'm an old soul. Thank you, Westover. Appreciate that. An older. Right? Okay, let's carry on. So we're going to put a little meat on the bone for those that like Dateline, that like
The
Law and
stories
Order and the story stuff. We're going to put some meat on this bone because there's a lot of meat here.
Okay.
So there's this class that you picked up on just like that. Why? You have scars. You're used to looking at the world through the lens of someone that's battled the battle and continues to battle the battle. There's failure in what we do. I mean, we're like baseball players. If we hit 3 out of 10,
we're all stars.
yeah, we're all stars, and we're looking good for the Hall of Fame at some point, depending on the position and how much the writers like us. That's a different story. Another one comes out, Unanimous, and
So what was the ruling on the on the reverse discrimination?
Unanimous that it was unconstitutional. That
So she won her law school.
She won.
So
Any form of discrimination is discrimination. Period.
Gotcha.
The far-reaching ramifications of this ruling is profound. I mean, it is. That's not a Pandora's box. That's going back in time to where equal justice. I mean, this is literally a very large, but now let's talk about what got it there. What got it to the Supreme Court in the first place? How did it get to the Supreme Court? Because I'm not taking that case, and you're not taking that case, because I don't have an extra $500,000 laying around to fight this thing all the way up through. I don't. And 99.99999% of private attorneys that are very capable are in it to make a living.
Yeah.
So that's the side that Law and Order doesn't capture. And so the next case that comes down, same day, while they're giving us the unanimous decision on this one, that discrimination is discrimination. And that came from Brown.
Yeah.
And you know dang well, Thomas was in the background going, you're right in this one. You know dang well that happened.
Yeah.
You're right in this one. Everyone expects me to write this one. You're doing it. Here's your time. Here's your time to show that you can be a justice. Then Keegan, another far-lefter, wrote the next one, which is not a Second Amendment case, but let's go ahead and split hairs, okay? Smith & Wesson is sued by Mexico because the cartels end up with Smith & Wesson weaponry.
Okay.
And they're being sued because of these guns being in the hands of the wrong people. And so...
And accusing Smith & Wesson of selling the guns to the cartel?
Being liable for, frankly, producing this. So
not doing enough background checks or whatever it is to... Okay.
Right. Unanimous. No. Unanimous can't sue them for that. Too far removed.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless we were proving that Mexico bought, or the cartels bought them directly, which I'm assuming you couldn't prove. All right.
Too far removed. And the fact that there was a justice court.
So did they throw it out on jurisdiction?
That one they straight up reversed. That one they reversed.
So it had already come in.
Yeah, it had already come into the court, been ruled upon.
Smith & Wesson
was liable, and they reversed it and did not remand.
What state what district did
what
that
was
come
this
from?
one? This
one
was
got to be a
in
circuit. Was this Ninth Circuit stuff?
No, it wasn't ninth, actually,
Okay.
which is odd.
Yeah.
Because that sounds
Or
like it
are we
should
talking
be a
about
ninth.
First Circuit? Or?
I think it's first. I don't know the deets
All
on
right,
that.
anyway.
Again, it just all came in, and I was drinking through a fire hose. I was excited about the first one, and the next one came in. I'm like, holy snap. Well, the remote thing, I mean, if the Supreme Court wanted to put the screws to the Second Amendment and gun manufacturers, which, depending on how many people are on the Supreme Court or what, this was unanimous. This is interesting pool here. Too remote. This looks like really good, really sound justice and work right now. And I was bagging on the same court, the same one, 10 seconds ago, and I'm sure I'm going to 10 seconds before now, but I'm going to give them their due today. Not just because it's unanimous, number one. Number two, I like that. I like lockstep. No, are you kidding me? Especially on the reverse discrimination stuff, and especially on, something as like a remote down the road, a Carol towing type thing, which that one actually is reverse of what I just said. So never mind, strike that from the record. But it's very, very good legislation to, draw a line. Like they have to be in cahoots with the cartels, and you have to be able to prove it.
So there was actually some due process that looked like it was. There was actually some legal
It
analysis.
actually looked like due process. So now let's take it back with what we know. How many years ago do you think these two cases began?
To get to the Supreme Court, I mean, DACA's been being litigated since 2016 and has not quite gotten its decision from the Supreme Court. So
Right.
I'm guessing you're at least a 5-year case.
I'm thinking that's a good guess. I'm thinking that's what I would probably put it in. So this didn't happen yesterday. We're just talking about it today as it's hot news today. This required 5 at a minimum. We'll just put it that way, around 5 years approximately, just to cover.
Yeah.
5 years. And it's like, there's a lot of money. Now, you can understand where the money's coming from Smith & Wesson.
Yeah, that one's your
No-brainer.
lobbyist, whatever it is. Yeah.
No brainer.
Yeah.
That's going to have its
You're gonna
coffers
have
to be
plenty
able to.
of people supporting that cause.
What I was impressed with the reverse discrimination piece is
It's not a class action. It was an individual.
It was an individual. So I'm impressed, number one. Number two.
But they had the fortitude to go for it. You may have had some concessions from the attorney, you assume, that wanted to take it. I mean, you're just making an assumption.
You had
that
you had some do-gooders.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it was a book writer type attorney taking this on, or a scholar. It was a do-gooder type program.
Was it ACLU?
It was kind of like that, but it was a
University of Virginia's Supreme Court litigation, the head of that.
University of
So you had
Virginia Supreme Court litigation.
a nonprofit or a
nonprofit
or a public
but you usually
sector.
get what you
on
get.
on these types of civil rights cases, you're usually going to get something ACLU based or something where they're backed.
Right. I mean, you think about 5 years ago, that Supreme Court didn't look like it does right now. You still had Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You say that 3 times in a row.
It was Boston's first court.
And it was
in Boston.
what I found interesting is the commentary is still along the lines of your law and orders. It's still along the lines of your Matlocks. It's still along. They're the talking points. I'm over here like 1,000 miles and behind, in front, over here, over everywhere, because it's just like that took a long time to get there. The Supreme Court did not look like it does now, but it wouldn't really have mattered given that it was unanimous and given that it was a very good result. Number two, 5 years ago, the climate of a white female,
Trying to do this would have
been interesting, different, I suppose, because we've got a lot of furries and different types of all sorts of categories now that we got to, okay, now the white female is chucked in with us. Okay, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's funny how that both of those decisions, one limits the litigious nature of our culture in the sense that, okay, you've got to at least show some harm here. You got to show a connection. The other one opens the door for
Right.
all kinds of litigation.
Right.
Right. So it's
the
two
other one
different-
opens it wide. One shuts, one opens.
Yeah. And obviously one's individually based and one's company monetarily based. So I don't know if that's a difference. But.
I'm a big fan of what's happening here. So in my mind anyway, I like what's happening in my mind. So, but I hate it. So I'm about to relay a story. This is why I started with kind of what you get to see through your lens. And this one is, frankly, not any more devastating. Has a little bit more shock and awe to it, but no more devastating than a family being imploded, yanked apart, sleepless nights, wondering, are the kids going to stay? Are they going to go? Are we going to stay? Are we going to go? Yada, yada, yada. Are we going to lose mom to Mexico from the Arpaio sweep? There's some heart-wrenching in there, but it kind of goes under the radar because there's no Hallmark movie about it yet. And frankly, that'd be a great movie for any movie producer. I mean, I've brought up a movie no one's seen, A Day Without a Mexican, which I thought was fantastic, very well done. And it was like, ooh, riveting at how deep they went with that.
It's getting out there, though, the stories a little bit. I have a Army Ranger best friend that's a Green Beret and very conservative. And,
so few of us.
And he sent me this morning. He's like, I want you to listen to this podcast. I thought of you while I was doing it. And the podcast was full of some really intimate stories of the immigration process. And he was just like, I just thought of you. This is crazy. This is a really sad time for what
we might want to start relaying some of those.
Yeah.
Because that is something that you look at.
So I'm hoping those, we've always, talked about politics aside. Yeah. Like you said, the scars or whatever it is, but there's some intimacy to all of these decisions. And sometimes even if you're in a certain realm politically, sometimes you need to pause and slow down and think about some of the ramifications of it. At least I try to, and everything, on both sides.
Both sides. What I experienced early on, and so we're talking within the first 3 to 5 years. Lady was taking Christmas presents to her grandkids right there on Hermosa Vista and Old Gilbert Road. And some people may even know this story. Some may not. I don't know. It's a long time ago, so... and some kid came to carjack her. She's just sitting at the stoplight. You can't get any more kind of a safe area in the world.
Yeah, Mountain View High School.
This is Mountain View, right down the street from Mountain View. I mean, Northeast Mesa is very predominantly mild, and especially back then, even more so, but I mean, mild still. Walks right up to the window, and the lady opens, rolls down the window, and he blows her head off. Okay, grandma literally delivering Christmas presents to her grandkids Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Just boom. Now, the gun was shaken, and the kid's not used to having a gun in his hand. He's 16 years old, on something. Had just been released from the Salt River Pima Indian community. And no, I don't have to stay quiet, which we did sue. Just been released from their social services to his turned 18 years old that day sister that was also in the same
predicament
orphanage, literally in their orphanage. Could you imagine being in a tribal orphanage? Number one.
Yeah.
Sued. State court, we got $12 million. They didn't even show up. So it's not like it was a big fight there. I'm very wet behind the ears.
Sued the tribe?
Uh-huh. Federally sued the tribe, where I got it handed to me. Because you can't do that, right? Too many regulations, too many laws, too much red tape to where it shields them immunity and jurisdiction and all. And really it came down to immunity. So I argued pretty well right up until that immunity wall. So I'll never forget the judge that hated it, hated the whole thing. I'll never forget that piece of paper that I have laying in my desk somewhere of 12 million, and I told the family it's not worth the paper it's written on, because how are we going to get a dime? You can't collect. You know what I mean? And so the federal thing fell. That was something with a little bit of teeth into it. Had I had, and had this family had, significant proceeds to go after what justice, this may have landed or not. It's a chance. This may have landed somewhere of, where something could be done to change that. Let's flip the script. This has been just within the last 5 years, maybe less. I got a client, video. Now we're in Videoville. Now everything's on video. We had a client on video, and he's not the most likable client on the planet, and he's a little bit of squirrely, and he's on drugs, and he gets the crap. He gets lit up. I mean, he makes, what's that, the Floyd guy?
Yeah, George Floyd. He
makes George Floyd's situation look like milquetoast. They were rolling on this dude. I mean, and all just caught on video. Everything's on video. Broke his back, broke 2 ribs, broke his neck. I mean, and he was strung out like Floyd as well. He just was the wrong color to collect. Period. I'm not going to spend $500,000 prosecuting this case to hopefully get way less than that back. Why? All the hurdles that are in front of me, and I don't have the right color client. And I have to say that with a straight face. If that person would have been black, I'd never have to work again.
No, I mean...
That's what the Supreme Court did today. Now, it's going to take a while for us, private practitioners that are out there, me running a firm, and you doing the same thing, and also in the scrap too. I mean, you're still arm wrestling. I know you. It's going to take a while for this to trickle down, for us to start going, oh, I can say yes to that case. This is not a popular conversation, but the reason why there's been little representation in these types of scenarios is the red tape and lack of money, lack of potential of money. Why are there billboards after billboards after billboards of Sweet James and the Raffy and the
muscle guys?
Oh, yeah, muscle guys. I like that one. I like the muscle guys.
Lerner
The Lerner and Rowe. They're not even that muscle. I kind of, never mind. Anyway, they're not worth. They need a cool beard like you. That Flavor Saver's not doing it for me. If you want to check. Anyway, let's carry on. There's a reason why. There's a carrot to chase. There's some money in an auto wreck. Regardless of your color, creed, anything. Does not matter. And what you make is commensurate to what your client makes. A really good little deal as far as that goes. It's not dirty, but it's just fun to make fun of. But the reality is it's a pretty pure system. There's a carrot to chase. And usually both sides feel a little bit hosed if the representation was well done. Both sides feel a little bit hosed, and that means it's probably fair. That's what we're looking to get in almost every scenario we can. There's certainly people that have been dramatically wronged, but lest we forget, they were dramatically wronged. I mean, this dude that I represented broke back, broke neck, you're not getting that back.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the same. I mean, you can get a lot of money and roll around on it on your bed when you can roll around. You know, you paid a pretty significant tax to make that money. But for things to be cleared away because of gender politics, or, however you want to put that, is kind of offensive to justice. What happens to one person and whatever that one person looks like, however they were born, shouldn't matter. It should come down to facts.
Yeah.
And I like that Supreme Court ruling today. It's reverse discrimination. There's just discrimination. I like that ruling. That makes sense. I like that Brown wrote. I like that she wrote that opinion.
Yeah.
Everybody would think that's a Clarence Thomas opinion, and likely, in large part, it may have been. However, she authored it. She penned it. I'm kind of surprised. A little bit surprised. I like that part of it. I like that makes me feel like the walls are kind of coming toward the middle a little bit. This wild ride we've been on with Trump, which is still wild, but it's a big, he starts at a 10, but he's really kind of shooting for the 5. But he'll rattle that 10 saber big. But we've even seen that kind of stuff kind of trickling down in immigration alone. I mean, it's kind of still hot. Yes. It's not at a 10 now, but it's at a 9.2, and it has the potential of going right back up. So it's not coming down fast
for that area. But I agree with you generally. Immigration's a bad example, maybe just for him because he's not touching immigration much anymore. But he's got Stephen Miller there.
Stephen Miller's pretty rough. I will say
Stephen Miller's gone from
I
want 2,000 arrests a day. Now he's told he's fired ICE directors because they haven't been doing 5,000 arrests a day.
Right.
And they're doing a bunch of little sneaky things to do it, which is where I'm having a problem.
I'm not
they're having people show up to hearings and court hearings and arresting them.
I'm not a fan of where they're at in this whole thing. I like some of the things I'm hearing from administrations here. I like that a lot because I'm starting to hear kind of like what we've talked about, solutions. I'm starting to hear some real chatter about, solutions. And not everybody can have the brilliant solution we have. They need it. But at the end of the day, it was really good to see 2 unanimous decisions, very different, like you just said, perfectly put. One opened a door, one closed a door. One, I would dare to say, did not open Pandora's box, opened a door to reasonable.
Yeah, you'd hope. I mean, it obviously does open litigation a little bit because, like you just talked about, is that now as an attorney, you may be more willing to take a case that was always a good case, but because of circumstances, culture,
it just wasn't
cancellation culture that we
had.
We're
not going to make the money.
You weren't going to get a jury to make a decision.
We're going to spend a lot more money than would come back.
And that's what people sometimes don't think about is that a lot of these cases, look, you as an attorney, you can't forum shop necessarily. I mean, you can try your best, but it's nice against the rules. You're not necessarily knowing who you're going to be assigned as a judge. You're not necessarily knowing whether it's going to be a bench trial or a jury trial until you get into some of these things. And if you're not hyper aware as a good attorney of, okay, my likelihood of a success with this judge is going to be this, I've got to take it to a jury trial, but then I'm putting it up to a complete arbitrary, like I have no idea who's going to be on the jury panel. And if we're in a climate like you talked about 5 years ago when this litigation started, where a jury, even if they feel like the facts fit in your favor, just don't want to go down that road because of the climate that we're in. So yeah, now I agree with you that that's now going to open the door, whether I didn't necessarily mean that it's going to open the door to every dog suing for things that aren't, hopefully it doesn't, that aren't real factually based legitimate arguments, but it definitely opens the door for people that have turned down, for you and me, that have turned down cases for not wanting to do.
We went pretty far with that.
Type of issue.
We went far enough with that case where our guy got broken back, broken neck. We went as far as I could afford. And the client knew that. This is what we can afford and we can put toward this. I don't see a likelihood of resolution. Didn't show very well in a deposition, so on and so forth. And I don't think, and I knew that was going to happen.
But and you're right, but there's others that have bad circumstances that wouldn't show well in a deposition, but because of the climate and culture.
Right, because of our climate and culture, like what you just said, our climate culture dictates.
And it's not
really, it dictates risk.
Yeah.
It dictates whomever has the risk, it dictates them opening, settlement negotiations and resolving the case and so on. I mean, the Floyd people made millions upon millions and millions on the city, wherein if you want to sue a city here, and I don't know, but I'm sure that there are similar laws over there. Where was that at? In come on.
Minnesota, right?
Minnesota, something like that. Anyway, I'm sure there's similar laws of suing the government there where you have a strict statute of limitations on these things. You got to get them in. You got to get the right person sued. They got immunity that they're going to allege. They've got all sorts of moving parts. So same as we have here. So this has to be a pretty good sized case that fits the culture moment or climate.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's where it is. And that's for everything, right? When you have major movement, especially with Supreme Court decisions, it a lot of times fits the climate. Like you're getting civil rights legislation because the climate's starting to fight against what's there, right? And so it makes sense. It's interesting to see. I don't know if we've hit a flip. I mean, to me, I would love to take the optimistic view of that. You know, as a constitution, as a society, we've always wanted to. You know, our main preamble is that everyone's equal, right?
Right. That is our preamble.
And that's where my optimistic view is of that decision. And
Mine
again,
too.
I haven't read it, is that we're now back to the point of, okay,
I will tell you
we've
that
had a
it
marginalized
is-
society that
yeah.
we have tried to bring back to, and there's going to be arguments that there's still, systemic
It's a good
racism and
precedent.
whatever else. And,
Yep.
and all of that is probably true.
It's a good precedent to
But
begin
as a
with.
law in general, you can't, sometimes when you've got systemic racism and you're using your decisions to make it on that when it doesn't meet the facts or when it starts to marginalize other societies or other things, and you're using the excuse of, but historically this is what happened. Well, that's not how the law works.
Right.
We can't use it.
Well, I love this precedent, and you're going to enjoy it too. And it's going to bleed into so many things because now it's a Supreme Court precedent, and it's a unanimous one. And so there's some power to that. That you're going to have who's dissenting. You're not going to have that, but you're going to have other viewpoints as to why they all agreed, and that might be, I suppose,
some talking points.
Some talking points down the road. But the major, there's just discrimination.
Yeah, it's just a factual
I love
statement.
that finding. I love that footnote. It's not a footnote. I love that headline. It's like, oh. Let's listen to this a little more. The
Racism is
procedural-
racism. Discrimination is discrimination.
Yeah,
It
just
is what it is.
It can be black, white, green, purple, whatever. Martian.
So prove your discrimination, whatever side
Let's
you
go on the
fall on
facts.
that, and you won
Let's
your case.
bring in the facts. And I just love that. I just think, okay, let's go.
Yeah, and that for especially like you said, with the attorney perspective or us bringing our intimate or scars view of things that helps us.
And a little jaded too.
Yeah, and we're jaded because of what you talked about, is because we've been in these situations where we're not going to pursue something because of climate, culture, whatever else.
It's a real thing.
Instead of facts, and that's me in general. Like, take my attorney side. Maybe that's why I became an attorney. But
you mean the chicken and the egg arguments here on the Westover?
The wife-husband relationship, the parent-child relationship. I'm fact guy. Like my kids may hate it. Sometimes they know how to deal with me now. Like, bring your facts, and you can have a sleepover.
Right.
But if you don't bring your facts and you don't back it up with why you're doing stuff, it's gonna be a hard argument with me. And there's no emotion for me. It's just like, what are the facts? And so,
okay, what's this? What's this?
And so for me, that kind of decision's great for me to say, okay, it has nothing to do with other things that we're dealing with, emotion more than anything else.
Right.
Emotion, historical trauma, all of that I get. There's totally part of that. But when you're talking about precedent decisions, you have to take some of that emotion out of it because we're dealing with facts.
Pull the emotion out.
We're dealing with things that have overreaching,
Right.
I
love it. I loved it. It was a heartbreaking case to handle. So was the guy that got his butt kicked by, Pinal County Sheriff. It absolutely was just unfortunate that these guys, got away with it. And do I think law enforcement's dirty? No, I don't. I don't. For the most part, I think they're great. They have their flaws like any other institution does.
But there's liability and culpability when you cross lines.
Right. And sometimes...
And that doesn't make it systemic, but
right.
it makes it factually. It makes
sometimes that rubber does meet the road.
Event-based.
And unfortunately, like you said, culture and, what's happening in our climate, and unfortunately money. So I'm looking at this case going, this is what I'm willing to lose to prosecute this case. That's literally what my discussion went, or how the discussion went with my client at the time. This is how much I'm willing to spend. And once that's exhausted, I'm done. And we went that far, to that nickel. And I don't think I'm right. I don't think I'm noble. I don't think anything of it. It's just what I could spend. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't like to tell him that. And obviously he understood. But no one else, no one else would touch this case. Because literally one of the attorneys that he went to, the one that I sent him to, that only does these types of cases and does incredibly well with them, said, I'm
not touching this one.
And he said, why? And that's why I was so a little bit out there with it. He just said, because you're the wrong color, you're the wrong gender. I don't want to touch this case. Like I've got young, different ethnicities.
I'm going to have more success with somebody that fits the right profile.
I've got 10 other cases that fit a much better profile than you, that have about the same damages moving on.